Alright, we are live, and in today's live stream we are going to be sculpting different hairstyles. So I normally do the live streams on Wednesdays, which was meant to be yesterday, but I wasn't able to do it because I wasn't around yesterday. So I asked you guys on the Discord server to recommend something for me to do, and I'm just going to take the first comment. So the person said, I appreciate if you make another type of like hairstyle or facial hair. So we're just going to sculpt different hairstyles in today's video, and this sculpt that I currently have is the weekly live stream that we do on the Discord. So I'm about completing it. I'm almost done with it. So this is the reference and this is the sculpt. This is the sculpt and this is the reference. So I'm just going to sculpt different hairstyles. I'll start with this hairstyle, how I got to this level first, and then we'll try out some other hairstyles that you guys recommend. Hello everyone in the chat. Okay, so let me just hide this. And to get started with hair, what I like to do is to select the head sculpt, and just before I continue, I'm going to merge the neck and the head. Ctrl G to join them, and some things are going to break. That's fine. I'm just going to reselect the mirror object for the head, for the chin. Okay, and I'll go into sculpt mode. I already have a mark selected for the head. I'm going to clear that, and now I'm just going to remesh everything together. Somewhere around there should be fine. Yeah, and Ctrl R to remesh, and then let's smooth out the transitions, and then we'll go ahead and start creating the hair. I'll use the clay streaks brush, and we can mark out the transitions like this, and then hold down shift to smooth everything out. Okay, nice. That's the back of the neck, at the back of the head, and then I'm just going to smooth this one out just a tiny bit. I'll add some volume right here, and then I'm going to smooth it out. Alright, nice. And I'm just going to sharpen some of these areas up a little bit more. And I'll inflate the lips just a tiny bit. Okay, that is good. I'm not going to focus on the face for now. We want to sculpt the hair. So the way I like to start to sculpt hair is just to use the lasso marks brush. So if you just come here to this tool that says box marks and you select it, just hold down on it and you should see these other options. So you can use the lasso marks option, and then with the lasso marks option, I'm just going to select a portion of the hair. You can be rough about the selection, and then you go in and properly select what you actually want to select. So I'm just going to deselect these ones, and I'll make a much nicer selection for the hair, something like this. Okay, and we obviously don't want the ear to be part of our selection, so just hold down Control and deselect the ear, and then let's refine the selection at the back of the head here. And just make sure to refine the selection, deselect anything that you don't want to be part of the hair. and okay, something like this looks fine for me. I am going to now extract this into its own separate mesh. We can do that by going up here to mask and then max extract, and then the default options are completely fine, and then just extract. Okay, David in the chat said I want an arcane jinx sculpting tutorial. I don't know when I'm going to be able to make like such a specific tutorial like that, but hopefully in the future I'm able to get to that. I saw your comments, like I believe on another of my video. I might make a video like that, I'm not sure, so let's see. And then to actually make the hair look like hair, I'm going to increase the thickness, something like this. So this is just like the base hair, and now we can apply, yeah, something I forgot to just mention. So when I'm doing the hair, by default this value is on like -1, so I just like to take it to 0, so that if I increase the thickness, you can see it's going both in and out. So I just like to take the offset to 0, and then I'm just going to bring this into, yeah, somewhere around there is fine. And then before I apply the modifier, I'm going to go into the sculpt workspace, and then I'm just going to smooth out the edge of the hairline. Something like this, and then I'll go back, I'll apply the solidify modifier. Nice. And let's go back into sculpt mode. I'm going to increase, actually reduce my mesh resolution. We don't need a lot of resolution on the hair. 0.02 for me should be fine, and then Ctrl R. Okay, nice. Now let's get rid of this sharp edge on the hair. So to do that, we're just going to use the scrape brush, and we are going to plane out, just use a scrape brush and plane this out. All the way to the back, and I'll just make sure everything is shaded flat, shade flat. Okay, and then we can smooth this out. I'm going to adjust the shape of the head. Let me actually just open up my reference so that you guys can actually see what I'm looking at. Okay, so this is the hairstyle we are going for, and okay, so I'm just going to pull this into the shape that we have on the reference. Something like that. From the side, you also want to pull this one in. Okay, and then I'm just going to hold down shift and smooth this out. Okay, nice. This looks like a good shape for the base of the hair. And now I'm just going to start pulling it into the shape that I have on the reference. Something like this. And now with hair, you want to always make sure to add some direction on the hair. So on this hair, you can see like there's a pattern at the middle here. So I'm just going to use the crease polish brush to mark out this pattern on the hair. I'll take it all the way somewhere around here. Okay, and then we can start adding some direction on our sculpt. So if you notice on the reference, everything is like going this way. Everything is going like this way, so everything is just like going down. So I'm just going to use the clay shapes brush for this, just to add some direction, and then we can start adding some random brush strokes on the hair. So I'm not going to take everything facing downwards like this. And most times when you're sculpting hair, you probably don't want to be using X symmetry. So if I were actually doing this for like an actual project, this is just like a speed sculpt for now. If I were doing this for an actual project, I'll turn off X symmetry and sculpt both sides asymmetrically. But for now, I'm going to use the X symmetry. And I'll just clump some of the hair, just adding some direction to the hair, making the hair like make sense is essentially what I'm doing. Something like this for now, I think looks okay. We are still going to come back to clean it up. I'm going to bring back the reference, and now we need to make this other part of the hair. So like these are like short bangs in front of the hair. So the way we are going to do this, we could use the same exact method that we used to extract this part of the hair, or we could just add in another round cube, and then we are going to push and pull this into place. For this, I'm going to just approach it the same way we did this other part of the hair. So I'm going to select this, I'll go into sculpt mode, I'll clear the initial marks that we had, so Alt M to clear it, and now I'm going to select just the front parts of the hair, of the head, somewhere or something like this. Okay, something like that I think would make sense. And mask extract, and then I'm going to extract this. All right, I'll take the offset to 0, and I'll bring the thickness up. Okay, yeah, something like that is fine. We are definitely still going to refine the shapes here. If I apply the solidify modifier, I'll go into sculpt mode, and I'm just going to smooth all of these out. And we can also push this side in. You don't really need it to show in front of this hair. Okay, nice. I'm going to apply the solidify modifier, and so if you notice on the reference here, we have like different cut shapes on the hair. A easy way to do that in Blender, or an easy way to do that in Blender, is to use the lasso trim tool. And I'll turn off X symmetry for this one because the hair is like very asymmetrical, and then you can just cut parts of the hair. I'm going to apply all transforms just to make sure everything is working correctly, and you can cut out certain parts of the hair. Okay, something like that for now is going to work. And I'm just going to reduce my remesh resolution somewhere around here. Control R to remesh. I don't need, so you can see all these new colors that Blender just added in. I don't really need them. These are called facets, and probably I get this comment a lot on like my face sculpting tutorial. So probably you add the nose to the head and you start seeing new colors, or you just add objects together and you start seeing new colors. So these are just called facets, and facets can help you like do a lot of things. Like if I use the grab brush I can isolate like auto mask by facets. So if I turn that on, you're going to notice I'm only moving these facets. It's not going to affect any other parts of the geometry except those facets. So those are what facets are useful for. They are like marks, but like more advanced. But I'm not going to use this for now. I don't want to use them. I'm going to go up here to facets and facets from visible, and that's just going to turn everything into one big facet. So everything, all the colors are going to go away. All right. And now I'm going to use the exact same method that I used for the initial hair. Shift T for the script brush, and I'm just going to plane out the edges of the hair because I don't want this to be sharp. So I'm just going to plane out the edges right here. We can also just use the grab brush and start pulling some of these parts out. Okay. Okay, we're going to make sure like to blend this part of the hair with this other part of the hair. I'm going to use the script brush for this also. I'll just plane this until it starts blending with the rest of the hair. Okay, something like this is starting to look okay. We need to adjust this a lot more to start to make it make sense. I'll just switch back to this other hair for now, and I'll add in some direction on the hair. Okay, and I'll also do the same right here. I'll just come in with the clay shapes brush and I'll start adding in some direction right here. Okay, something like that makes sense. Right here the edge is looking like is looking a bit too boxy, so I'm just going to scrape this, plane this out and make it look more like hair. You can use the grab brush and pull this into the face a little bit more. Something like that, and something like this. Now we can go ahead and actually merge this geometry, this one and this one together, so that we can sculpt it as a whole. So I'm just going to select this, Ctrl G to join them together, and I'm going to increase the remesh resolution a bit, Ctrl R to remesh. Okay, and I'm just going to turn off, at this point I'm going to turn off asymmetry, and I'm going to use the clay shapes brush and just start adding in details, start smoothing out the transitions and start making the hair actually look really nice. Okay, I'm going to just make sure to smooth out this transition so that it's not visible when you look at the character from another angle. Okay, something like that. I like how this is looking right now. Okay, and something that will actually make this hair start looking really good is when we go in like with a crease polish brush and actually start defining like the edges on the hair. So you can use the, instead of the crease polish, you can actually use the draw sharp brush, yeah, this one, and you can start defining the edges on the hair. So you can hold down control and mark out the edges on the hair, something like that. Then just go in and really define the shape of each individual hair strand. I'm not going to do that for this hairstyle because I want to move on to another hairstyle right now, but that's just like the basics of sculpting hair. Very easy and very simple to do. So let's try out another hairstyle, and I'm just going to go on Google and find new hairstyles to do. So hairstyles, and let's check which one is going to be nice to do here on the sculpt on stream. This one is like really easy to do. That's like the exact same things that we did for this hairstyle is what you're going to do. The exact same things that we did for this, the hairstyle that we just made, is what you're going to do if you're trying to sculpt this. So this one is a bit too easy to do. Let's take a look at more hairstyles here. Afro hairstyle. This is the way I like to sculpt afro hair. So let me just show you guys that this one is very simple to do. So I'll go back to sculpt mode, Alt M to clear the mask. I'm going to use the lasso mask brush, so you can select that from here, and then we're just going to select any part of the hair, the part of the hair that we want to, or the part of the head that we want to make hair. Okay, something like this, and I'll make sure to deselect the ear. Make sure to deselect the parts you don't want. Okay, something like this should be nice. And now I'm going to go up to mask, max extract, and then extract. Change the offset to 0, and I'll bring up the thickness, something like this. Control A, or no, before we do that, I'm just going to go ahead and smooth out the hairline. Okay, and I'm going to apply this. I'm going to bring down the remesh resolution, Control R to remesh this, and I'm going to plane out these edges here with the script brush. And let me actually turn on screencast keys. And for this side, I'm just going to bring it in. Okay, that looks good. That looks like a nice base where we can start to sculpt in this type of hair. So we are going for something like this. It's not going to be exactly like that, but something like that. So the way I just like to sculpt curly hair like that is to use the snake hook brush. So this brush right here, the snake hook, and then you can just come in here and then you just twist the hair. I'm going to turn off X symmetry and you just like twist the sculpt, something like this, and to start giving you like that kind of indication of like curly hair. So using the snake hook brush, just twist this. And if you go ahead and you do this for throughout the hair, it's going to look like curly hair. Especially at the edges here too, you want to make sure to clean, to like roughen the edges so that it's not like straight. So just go ahead and keep on using the snake hook brush to just twist and turn the sculpt, and then it's going to turn into something that looks like curly hair. So you can already see where we are getting with this. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep on doing this for the next few minutes until I think everything looks good. And I'm just continuing to remesh once in a while so that I can get rid of some artifacts that I'm getting from when I twist the sculpt. So you can just remesh once in a while to get rid of some weird shading on the sculpts. Okay, so something like this looks good, and then you can just use the grab brush to adjust the shape of the hair to make it look more uniform, or to make it look bigger, depends on what you're going for. I'm just going to make it look a little bit bigger and a little bit more uniform. I'm going to remesh all of these, and I'll just go in again with the snake hook brush and continue to twist and turn some stuff. Okay. And I'm getting carried away with the hairstyle, but yeah, that's just how like you sculpt like curly hair, or this is how like you indicate curly hair on a character. So yeah, this is curly hair. Let's find another hairstyle to sculpt. You guys can recommend hairstyles in the comments. And long hair like this is actually even much easier to sculpt, or let's try sculpting something like this. So I'm just going to drag and drop this into Pure. Okay. And now let's sculpt this kind of hair that looks like this. We are going to use some other techniques. So we are going to use curves for some of these parts and some part of the hair around here, but for the most part it's just like the same thing that we did. So we still have this mask, we can mask and then mask extract, and then extract this mask. I'm going to take the offset to 0 and bring the thickness up. Okay, something like that. Control. Okay, before I apply the modifier, I'm just going to smooth out the hairline here. Control E to apply this. I'm going to reduce the remesh resolution, and then I'm going to use the script brush to just plane out this side. Okay, so this is going to be a good base for the hair. I'm going to just bring this forward a little bit more. Now we need to add some direction to the hair. I'm going to use the clean shoes brush for that. So we want all the hair to meet at the back here. Okay, so we can just start adding in some direction from the edges of the hair to where we just marked out. Okay, something like that. And we can also break up the edge right here. I'm just going to use the clay shoes brush to just break up the edge around here. Okay, this looks okay for the base of the hair, for this part of the hair. So now let's block out this ponytail. We can use you can either use like a curve like for this, but I'm going to use a skin modifier. I'm going to add in a plane. I'm going to select all these M, and I'm going to merge at center. Okay, I'll bring this back to where the ponytail should start from, and then I'm just going to extrude the overall general shape of the ponytail to something like this. And then to give this volume, to make it actually look thick, we can add a solidify, no, not a solidify modifier, a skin modifier. And I'm also going to add a subdivision surface modifier. And now to adjust the shape, the way this looks, we can select all the vertices, press Ctrl A to inflate or deflate it. So at the tip here, I'm going to bring this down, Ctrl A to bring it down, and I can push this into the hair, yeah, something like that. And we can also make it just like a lot less symmetrical from the back. Something like this can be fine. We can duplicate some parts of this, select this mark root. I'm going to select that edge, Ctrl E to just shrink everything down. I'll shrink down this area here. And we can just, so these are going to be like flyaway hairs. This is what I'm trying to achieve with these ones. We are still going to sculpt this, but for now I'm just blocking everything out. I'll place this right here, Shift D, and we can duplicate these ones around. Can always still come back to adjust the shape of this. Okay, I'm going to shade this smooth, and if you ever try to like shade the any mesh with skin modifier, you try to shade it smooth, it's not going to shade smooth because you need to come here and press, just check smooth shading, and then it's going to shade smooth. Okay, and I'm just going to keep on adjusting this. Okay, someone is asking in the comments, what about haircuts? Haircuts, if I start doing haircuts in this video, how is it going to like materials and all of that? But haircuts is not as hard, it's not very difficult to do, but I'm not going to do that in this video. this is just about like sculpting hair, so that's what I'm going to look at in this live stream. So I'm just going to sculpt hair. If I start going into haircuts, I would have to start adjusting materials and start looking for textures, and I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, so we need a lot more of these. I'm going to select this, Shift D, I'll duplicate them to the other side, rotate them, place them properly, and I'm just going to adjust some of these vertices to match the shape that we have. To something like this, I need to make this a lot more dynamic. I'm just going to delete these, X to delete. I'm going to select this edge here, I'm going to smooth it, right click and smooth vertex. Okay, I'll adjust this back into position. I'm going to duplicate this one, Ctrl A to make it a little bit smaller, a little bit slimmer, and then I'm going to adjust the shape of this. I'll make this one wrap around the main hair. Okay. Okay, and something like that looks good. I'm going to duplicate this, Shift D, and we can actually keep on doing that, just making the shape of the hair look a lot more nicer. So what I'm doing right here is like the blockouts. I'm just going in and blocking out the shape of the hair, and until I'm happy with the blockouts, I don't get started with sculpting. So I want to make sure that the blockout looks good before I go in and start sculpting anything like we did for the main part of the hair. If it doesn't look good to me at this stage, it's not going to look good when we start sculpting. So it's very important to make sure you have the blockout in place, and then you go ahead and start sculpting. I'm going to duplicate this again. Okay, something like that is starting to look nice. Okay, and I think you guys get the idea right now about like sculpting hair. It's getting a bit too repetitive, so just block out the main shapes of the hair. I'm going to move to the front part of the hair, and I'll do exactly the same thing. I'm just going to duplicate one of these, Shift D, and bring it to the front of the hair. Right here. And I'll just shape it into what I currently have on the reference. Something like that looks okay. I'm going to adjust the shapes, so I'm just going to select these, Ctrl A to shrink them down. And I'll shrink out these areas here, up these areas here. Okay, something like that. I'm going to shrink this down a little bit more. Alright, and this looks good for the front. The back is still looking, I don't like the way this looks, these smaller ones. I'm just going to select these and delete, and then I would go in and completely block out the hairstyle of this character. I'm not going to be able to complete it because I've run out of time. I need to get going right now, but yeah, this was how I sculpt different hairstyles in Blender. So let me recap the process. The process is just to max a certain part of the hair that you want to turn into hair. Then you apply the solidify modifier, and then you sculpt in the direction of the hair, and then you do that for as much times as you need, and then you'll be able to sculpt hair. So thank you guys for watching the live stream. If you have any other suggestions for future live streams, leave them in the comments if you're watching this after the live stream. And I'm going to see you guys in the, actually before that, if you want to learn more about like hair grooming, I have let me just open up my Gumroad. Okay, if you want to learn more about hair grooming, I have a course about hair grooming on my Gumroad. So just go to keneza.gumroad.com and you should be able to find that course about hair grooming. And it's more about hair grooming, not sculpting hair. If you want to know more about that, just check it should be in the description, the link in the description. If it's not there, I'm going to add it after now.